Michael Levere, and this is for my online chemistry class. Today I'm going to be talking about Henry Ford and James Watt. I'm going to be talking about their life and their important things that they did throughout it. First, we're going to talk about Henry Ford. His early life, he was born on July 30th in 1863 on a small farm in Dearborn, Michigan. He was 13 years old and he was gifted a pocket watch, and he took it apart regularly, and that kind of sparked his interest in mechanics and how things worked, and you could tell at a young age that he was going to do something with building things. He didn't enjoy the farm work that he had to do at home, so at the age of 16 he took an apprenticeship in Detroit as a machinist at a shop building firm where he learned about steam engines. After being in Detroit for 3 years, he returned back to the farm and got married to a Miss Clara Bryant in 1888. This is Miss Clara, and that's Henry Ford right there. The first 2 years of their marriage, he worked and owned a sawmill. In 1890, he was hired as an engineer at the Detroit Edison Company. Also in 1893, he got a promotion to chief engineer at that same company. While Ford was still working at the Edison Company, he started working on his horseless carriage. In 1892, he built his first buggy that was gasoline powered. It was a 2-cycle and it had 4 horsepower engine. 4 years later, he built his first model of the car, the Ford Quadricycle, which is right here. In 1896, he had a meeting with Edison executives presenting his business to Thomas Edison about building a better automobile. And in 1898, Ford was awarded his patent, and with money he raised, he was able to quit Edison Company and pursue his dream full-time building automobiles. He introduced his Model T, which is very famous. It's kind of the first big car that was affordable. In 1908, this car was first affordable to Americans. In 1913, he introduced the first assembly line, and that was kind of his big invention. It increased the time of building an automobile from 12 hours to 2.5 hours, and that in turn also lowered the cost of the automobile. He introduced also the 5-hour wage and 8-hour workday, 5 days a week, which gives you 40 hours a week, which is a normal work week still to this day. And this helped keep workers loyal to him, and they wanted to stay with him for as long as they could. In 1936, Ford and his son Edsel founded the Ford Foundation. The purpose of this foundation was to pave way for research, education, development, for grants, and long time it was one of the most influential foundations in the world. And during World War I, he bought out Stout Aircraft Company, and he started to produce full metal planes called the Ford Trimotor, and it became a very successful American airline. Henry Ford and his wife had one son, Edsel Ford, which is right here, and he revolutionized the American society with his Model T and the assembly line, which is still used today. And he passed away in April 7th, 1947, at the age of 83 from a stroke. Next, we're going to talk about James Watt. James Watt was born January 18th, 1736 in Greenock, Scotland. He was homeschooled for most of his early life, and he was not a very healthy child. He had to go to grammar school and learn Latin, Greek, and mathematics. And when he was younger, he'd go with his father and make models and repair navigation instruments in his father's workshop. This kind of showed his father that he was a really smart, intelligent young man. And he went on to have an apprenticeship as a scientific instrument maker in 1755. And he was such a quick learner that he mastered the craft in only 1 year. In 1764, Watt was repairing a steam engine and was mesmerized by the waste. He thought that it had too much waste. He wanted to improve it. So in May 1765, he invented a separate condenser and realized he could make a better version of the steam engine. So in 1769, he got a patent for his steam engine condensing chamber. Watt went on to start a business with his investor, Matthew Bolton, to start manufacturing his better version of a steam engine. Watt went on to start a business with his investor, Matthew Bolton, to start manufacturing his better version of a steam engine. With Bolton's financial support, Watt was able to make quick progress with his engines. In 1776, there was two types of engines made, one for pumping water and one for blowing air, which pumping water is just a pump and blowing air would be a compressor. Watt's biggest attribution over the next 5 years, he went on to install multiple engines for copper and tin mills. Bolton then encouraged him to invent a rotary motion for the steam engine, and in 1781 came his son, and Planet Gear also went on to patent this. Watt's first wife, Margaret, died of childbirth in 1773, so he was left with his two young children in 1776. He married Anne and one son and one daughter. James Watt died at the age of 83, just like Henry Ford, but he died in 1819. He passed away from tuberculosis on August 25th, 1819 in Birmingham. That's it.